Heartland Highways is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, dedicated to providing care for all and creating healthy communities in East Central Illinois, offering general and specialty medicine, including a regional cancer center, heart and lung center, orthopedics and sports medicine, a center for interventional pain, and a full complement of diagnostic and rehabilitative services. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care. Today we're here at one of our favorite places on the campus of Eastern Illinois University. Now we'll tell you a little bit more about it later in the show. But first we want to take a look at the history of this campus.
Now back in 1895, this was known as Eastern Illinois State Normal School, and it was a teacher's college, not unlike many of the other schools in Illinois and around the country.
Now the material, the research, the photographs that we got for creating this story came from a display created by Booth Library called Teachers Tame the Prairie. Desks, chalkboards, books, and school lunches. All reminders that education is one common experience we all share. For those teachers who taught us to read and write, how did they learn to become educators? Prior to colleges and universities, teacher training was a simplified and informal system.
Anyone with a bit of education had more than others, and therefore they could become the teacher. And so there wasn't a really formal training. If you attended school for a few years, you knew about what the teacher knew. And so then you became the teacher as they moved on. Until up into the 20th century, we had teachers with extremely small amounts of formal preparation. They knew how to read, they knew how to do the arithmetic, and they had some grasp of other subjects. And these one-room schools, of which there were thousands of them in our state alone, may have only had 8 to 10 students in the classroom, and they were all different levels.
A movement to formalize teacher training in the U.S. started in the East in the 1820s. Education reformers like Horace Mann advocated for the need to establish norms for teacher training. Schools quickly sprang up all across the country. Here in Illinois, the first state-funded normal school was established in 1857 at Illinois State University.
That institution in Illinois helped give a focal point to where teachers might get training and where presidents of other colleges and institutions were trained.
Following Illinois State came Southern Illinois at Carbondale, Eastern Illinois at Charleston, Northern Illinois at DeKalb, and Western Illinois at Macomb.
The odd thing is that most of these normal schools ended up in rural areas, and that's because we needed to have a school close by. Within a 75-mile radius, you could find a normal school. You could be trained, and you could get there, in the week and perhaps get home for the weekend.
Cities competed to be the chosen location for these colleges, and Eastern was no exception.
In the archives, we have a telegram that was sent from Springfield on the day that the vote was taken, and it was after 12 ballots, I guess, they finally narrowed it down to Charleston. So it took about 4 years from that point to get the building built, and the school opened in 1899 as Eastern Illinois State Normal School.
Livingston C. Lord was chosen to be the first president to lead the campus, a post he held until 1933. He strived to create an atmosphere of learning both in and out of the classroom. He held strongly to personal ideals of punctuality, neatness, and not smoking in public. Believing education should play a dominant role in a person's life, he remained a lifelong teacher and learner. Students who came to Eastern in the early days could be granted admission even without a high school diploma.
And they would take some preparatory training, and then they might be here 2 or 3, 4 years to get the amount of training they needed to at least begin a career as a teacher. Some of them would go back later and get more education.
Just 1 year after the school opened, Eastern graduated their first class of teachers. But those early classes earned diplomas and not academic degrees.
The first bachelor's degree wasn't awarded until 1922. So it went all those years they gave out diplomas or sort of like teacher certificates, indicating that people had completed certain training programs and were qualified to be teachers in the elementary schools or in some cases the high schools.
In addition to coursework, most normal schools used on-campus model or laboratory schools to help their students apply their knowledge in a real classroom setting.
Here at Eastern we had Blair Hall, and then later we had the laboratory school in Buzzard Hall, and each one of the normal schools in Illinois had those training facilities, and they were replaced over the years, some more than others, some quicker than others, but it gave these budding teachers places to ply their trade before they were truly responsible for everything that was happening in their schools.
What they called critic teachers. That would be like the person who was in charge of the classroom, the experienced teacher. And it's a classroom of third graders. And there's a little boy that's reciting, doing recitation, they called it. And then in the background, there's a group of 4 or 5 normal school students who are observing the class and how the experienced teacher teaches the class. And then, they would in turn then take their turn teaching the students. So that's a really evocative picture because it sort of shows the whole purpose of what the school is about.
As the school changed, so did its name, from the original Eastern Illinois State Normal School to Eastern Illinois State Teachers College.
Even though we think of it as a fairly big school now, it has its roots in a small school tradition. And probably everybody knew one another for decades. You come here, and after a few months being here, you'd know everybody, and so it was a real family type situation that the students experienced,
After World War II, the college changed names again, dropping the word teachers, which reflected the addition of other degree offerings. The first master's degree in education was awarded in 1952, and in 1957, the school made a final name change to Eastern Illinois University.
So it really retained the flavor of being an education institution solely for many, many, many decades. And still today, it's one of the main emphases at Eastern is on the education college and training of teachers. I mean, there are many other things here now, but that's still one of the largest departments.
Today, there are 7 undergraduate degrees and 8 graduate degrees offered by EIU's College of Education and Professional Studies. Eastern's history as a teacher's college is still evident today. Blair Hall, which once served as Eastern's first model school, still stands right next to Old Main. Buzzard Hall, a laboratory school up until the 1970s, is the home of the College of Education and Professional Studies. From their first graduating class of 4 students back in 1900, today Eastern awards about 3,000 degrees every year and continues their tradition of training the future educators of tomorrow. If you remember our show called Heartland Highways at Home, you might recall this place. Now, we gave you just a brief tour, but today we're going to give you the whole story. This is the secret garden here at Eastern. Now, it's part of the Biological Sciences Department, so students and faculty use it for research and study. But just like all the rest of the places on campus, this place is open to anyone who'd like to visit. As early as 1903, a greenhouse has been a part of the campus of Eastern Illinois University. In 1962, the Hiram F. Thut Greenhouse was built to serve as a botanical conservatory and research facility.
We have a total of roughly 800 species and cultivars in our collection. About 350 of those are in the greenhouse. Another third of the greenhouse is reserved for plant propagation. We propagate plants for classes and labs, as well as trying to maintain the collection. And then the third of the greenhouse is a reserve for research use.
Inside the greenhouse resides a famous yet sometimes smelly plant species. The Titan arum, or corpse flower, is the largest flowering plant in the world. A native of Sumatra, EIU's Titan arum first bloomed in 2008 and again in 2010. The public's fascination with this plant has drawn thousands to see and smell this rare botanical event.
The flower, or the inflorescence, can reach up to 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide, and it smells like rotting meat. And the way that it pollinates is by attracting flies. And the best way to attract flies is to smell like something dead.
But even if the Titan arum is not in bloom, there are plenty of others to see and smell. The collection not only includes those plants inside the greenhouse, but is expanded to a diverse and changing outdoor collection known as the Secret Garden.
Of course, I had seen the movie, The Secret Garden, and then I read the book and thought, well, this is something that could be considered a secret garden, because you don't know it's here until you're actually in the garden. A lot of people just walk past, and it isn't until you actually walk through the garden that you realize there's something here.
Not wanting to keep the secret garden a secret anymore, greenhouse manager Steve Melhorn has been working for several years to transform and renovate the space.
And then in early 2003, the idea came up that it'd be nice to do something with this garden and upgrade it, make it into something that can be useful for classes and labs, as well as the visitors who have gardens at home.
Many of the straight-line concrete walkways were changed into winding paths and raised beds using recycled materials. These bricks are 1902 road pavers from the city of Charleston.
And along the other pathways, I went to the Charleston Stone Quarry and got some native limestone. Riprap is what they called it, and used the native limestone as borders here instead of the broken concrete sidewalk, which I think that the native limestone looks a lot better, and it fits. It works in this garden.
Steve has been working on this project since 2003, and his efforts have started to pay off. Today, the garden is filled with a wide variety of plant species that are the outdoor extension of the greenhouse collection.
And the secret garden is divided into 14 environmental areas. These environmental areas are then subdivided into 3 or 4 separate little gardenlet areas. I also have native plant gardens. So there is an area of native shade garden, which range from native shade in wet environment, native shade dry environment, a small garden that's a forest border of native plants, and then full sun native gardens, so that I have full sun plants that are in a tall garden where they grow, the plants grow to be 4, 5, 6, 7 feet tall, and then a medium height full sun native garden, and then a low height full sun native garden. I wanted to develop small garden areas because people have need for designing small spaces in their yards, and this would be a good place for them to come and look at plants in various settings. The secret garden is the favorite part of my job, getting out here and putting in plants and doing various designs and creating garden ideas.
Steve has designed the garden so that something is in bloom throughout the growing season. And like most home gardens, this project is never quite finished.
So there are, as I said, about 450 species and cultivars out here now. I'm shooting for 1,000 because there is still a lot more area to develop. Right now, the garden is in, I would say, an adolescent state. It's not finished. It looks a lot better than when I started it, which was in 2003, but it is far from finished.
Just a stone's throw from the secret garden is the EIU Observatory located near the campus ponds. The EIU Observatory is run by the physics department and houses a state-of-the-art 16-inch telescope that allows the public and students alike to view celestial bodies that you can't see through smaller telescopes.
Well, the observatory was built and erected in about 2004. It was actually a student project, so we have a sturdy built building. And after that happened, all the renovations inside, as you'll see probably in a little while, and the dome and things like that, that was all constructed by students over the years from about 2003 to 2004. And then we installed the telescope in October of 2004, and it's been open ever since. The telescope there that we use is what they call a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. Most of the focusing is done by a mirror in the back. When you say 16 inches, that means that's the sort of the diameter of the lens or the mirror that people use. Telescopes are big light buckets, so we're looking at dim objects, so literally in this case size does matter, so the bigger the better. And it's on a fully robotic mount, so what it is actually controlled by computerized control so that we can go from one place to another. And in fully robotic mode, we could give it a list of objects, and it could go automatically from one to the other without much maintenance.
The telescope, housed at the darkest spot on the campus of Eastern Illinois University, is used by both faculty and students of the physics department, who primarily conduct research once they've learned the basics of how to operate the scope and its computer software.
Once they're sort of trained up, they can use either that telescope, or we also work with Bob Holmes, who has a private observatory about 12 miles outside of Charleston. And the students can get trained up and do research on his telescopes, which are even bigger than the ones on campus here. So they do research mostly on things like finding what they call NEOs, near-Earth objects, things that can sort of smash into Earth and send us the way of the dinosaurs, basically. And that's the primary work we do, and we're looking at, first things first, just finding and identifying orbits, right? And then some of the students have also just recently started a project to try to measure the rotation of these.
One of those students is Hannah Tanqueray, who says one of the best things about having access to a telescope on the university campus is being able to get the hands-on experience.
It's really kind of satisfying when you push a button and you can hear it up there just moving, and it's neat. Myself and a few other students, we do astrometric work, and we also do photometric work on asteroids. And the majority of the astrometric work we do on the 16-inch telescope. It's a bit smaller than the 30-inch and some of the other telescopes that Bob Holmes has. So we do the astrometric work. That's basically what Dr. Conwell was talking about, where we take pictures of asteroids and we basically pinpoint their positions, which then we can give that data to the Minor Planet Center. And from that data, they can better calculate their trajectories. And so that's the astrometric work, is basically just finding asteroids and knowing where they're going and what they're doing.
Whether the students are working with EIU's telescope or with those at the Astronomical Research Institute, the privately run observatory outside of Charleston on Bob Holmes's property, all of their data is put to good use.
He takes so many photos that through the University of Chicago, he has and Yerkes Observatory, they have an educational outreach program where students, like the students at Eastern, but also high school students, can actually take this worldwide and analyze the photos as they come off nightly. And if they do the measurement and find something new, they get credit for actually making a new discovery published at the Minor Planet Center at Harvard. So worldwide, any measurements done by what they call minor planets, asteroids, comets, things like that, once we accurately do those measurements, we report them to the Minor Planet Center, and anybody can access those. Those are all totally online.
So you may be picturing students standing with their eye up to the telescope's eyepiece as they conduct their research. But as Dr. Conwell told us, that's only the case once in a while for some special occasions.
Most of the time, when we use it, we're not actually up there looking through an eyepiece or anything like that. That's a common misnomer. Nearly all the time when we're using it, we have a camera. But about once a month, on the last Friday of every month, right, we have an open house for the public where we take the camera off, put an eyepiece in, and it's rain or shine, so if it's not raining and it's clear, you get to look through a nice big 16-inch telescope at whatever happens to be out that night. And even if it's raining, you can always come by and not look through the telescope, but at least look at it, and we'll let you rotate the dome.
Getting to look through a telescope like this is a rare treat and quite a world apart from the experience you might have with a telescope at home or from simply stargazing with the naked eye.
Without a camera, this thing will pick up roughly 600,000 times dimmer than what you could see with the naked eye. With a camera, right, you can actually see a lot more with the camera. You could see things, if you look through the monitor, 8 million times dimmer than what you could see with the naked eye.
And generally, the reaction to what people see the first time they step up to the telescope's eyepiece is the same.
The first time they look in the telescope, especially if we're looking at Jupiter or something, they just say, wow. And the one thing that is my favorite is, and especially little kids will say this, they'll say, it's so real. Like, they've seen pictures in textbooks and stuff of Jupiter and of the moon and stuff, but when they can actually see it, like, they're looking at it, it's there right now, they're just like, it's so real, it's really there. Like, that's the main reaction that people get that I think is really cool.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of Heartland Highways.
If you ever find yourself in the Charleston area or on the campus of Eastern Illinois University, there's plenty to see and do, so make sure to stop by.
We'll see you all next time.
Is there a place we should see or a person we should meet? Well, tell us about it. Heartland Highways covers within a 200-mile radius of our home base here in Charleston, Illinois. You can email us at heartlandhighways@weiu.net. Call us at 1-877-727-9348 or send us a letter to 600 Lincoln Avenue, Charleston, Illinois 61920. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Heartland Highways is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, dedicated to providing care for all and creating healthy communities in East Central Illinois, offering general and specialty medicine, including a regional cancer center, heart and lung center, orthopedics and sports medicine, a center for interventional pain, and a full complement of diagnostic and rehabilitative services. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care. An exhibit called Teachers Tame the Prairie. Hello. Okay, thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of Heartland Highways.
Now, if you ever... Okay. Seriously. Good night.
If you remember our show called Heartland Highways at Home, then you were... Sorry.